Ignition sequence start.
The reason I'm prepared for this position is because I've been preparing for this all my life. As far as James, he's our guy.
We still got James Harden. Our goal is still to win a championship.
T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal.
Being in a win-now situation, that's great. I'm a win-now coach.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What is up, and welcome to our Locked On Rockets pregame show. We are going to be joined ever so shortly by Roosh Williams, who is running a skosh behind, but we'll go ahead and get the ball rolling here. So I am your host, Jackson Gatlin, host of the Locked On Rockets podcast, joined by Roosh here in just a moment, host of the Noble and Roosh show on ballislife.com. Be sure to check out both of those podcasts whenever you have a chance to. We would greatly appreciate it. Now, we've got Rockets, Lakers right around the corner. Biggest game of the season for the Rockets to kind of continue this this kind of a chore to convince James Harden that this is a team that is worth staying at, and that a team that can actually win some games, do something good. So we'll have Roosh here in just a second, but let's go ahead and get you some pregame updates first. So we'll go ahead and dive straight in here. We've got going on, let's see. Ooh, not the right button. Apologize about that. There we go. House is still going to be out, unfortunately, but he's making progress with his back spasm injury. He's actually made some really good progress per Coach Stephen Silas up to this point. The Lakers will have LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and KCP available, but Wesley Matthews is actually a late scratch to the lineup, which is actually a huge thing for the Houston Rockets because Matthews historically has actually done a pretty good job as far as being a James Harden agitator, somebody who makes Harden really work for a lot of his shots, gives him kind of a hard time defensively. And then lastly, Stephen Silas did say that tonight, and this is something that we've spoken about, kind of speculated on quite a bit at Locked On Rockets, is when would we see DeMarcus Cousins and Christian Wood for extended minutes play together in the lineup together as kind of a, not quite a true Twin Towers fashion, but essentially, sliding Christian Wood over to the 4 spot, having DeMarcus Cousins play the 5. And what better night than to potentially attempt that than against the LA Lakers with Marc Gasol at that 5 spot, Anthony Davis at the 4 spot. Stephen Silas going as far as to say that we could see some minutes for those guys out there tonight. That's going to be an interesting thing. One, if they roll out that lineup, and 2, if that lineup actually looks good, because there were a lot of people clamoring early in the season for Cousins to be the starting 5 and slide Christian Wood down to the 4 spot. So depending on how that lineup looks tonight, maybe they'll do more of it, maybe they won't. But there's going to be a lot of different keys to this game to kind of focus on and figure out and see if this Rockets team is actually going to be able to make some noise in the Western Conference. Now, kind of looking at the last game and what the Rockets were able to do against the Orlando Magic, look, it was a shorthanded Orlando Magic team, yes. But this Rockets team needed that win in the worst of ways. Now they're sitting at 3-4 on the season. You've got the Lakers, who are at 7-3, who have had a pretty solid start to their season, sitting atop the Western Conference. Just looking at the standings right now, you've got the Suns and Lakers tied for the first spot at 7 wins and 3 losses apiece. Then pretty much down the rest of the line of the Western Conference, everybody's got 4 or 5 losses apiece. A lot, the Rockets included, being in that same kind of middle pack area, sitting at 3-4 on the season. But and I think we might actually have Roosh Williams ready to go here. Oh, never mind. He's having some technical difficulties trying to join our stream. We'll get him in here in just a second. But looking at this game, there's going to be, a lot of one, there's a lot of interest in winning this game, kind of as a revenge thing for getting bounced in the playoffs. Losing 4 straight games in a row to the Lakers was a little painful last postseason. I know that this Rockets team is a lot different than last postseason. You don't have Coach D'Antoni anymore. Daryl Morey's gone, so it's a new look Rockets team. But that sting is still there from getting bounced by the Lakers, losing 4 games in a row after winning game 1 in the playoffs. Not a great look whatsoever. So, there's probably a little bit of pride there for the guys who are still on this team. James Harden, Eric Gordon, PJ Tucker, guys who went up against the Lakers in the bubble and were kind of embarrassed in that back half. Now, Daniel House doesn't get a chance to right his wrongs from what took place in the bubble. Unfortunately, maybe he'll be here for the second game against the Lakers on Tuesday evening, but he's not here in this game specifically. I think, looking at the way these things are going to shake out, it's got to be, how are you going to contain LeBron James and Anthony Davis? If either of those guys have a monster night, then you're going to be in for a world of hurt if you're the Rockets, right? And we saw that throughout the playoffs. We saw the Rockets really struggle at times to be able to contain Anthony Davis. But the hope is that Christian Wood, who is I don't want to say pound for pound match, but is as close as you can get to being a really good defensive match, a deterrent for Anthony Davis. That's, he should be able to match up with AD and be able to at least slow him down to an extent. Now, the Rockets starters are going to be John Wall, James Harden, David Nwaba, PJ Tucker, and Christian Wood. So it'll be interesting to me if they decide to start PJ Tucker on Marc Gasol or if they opt to have PJ Tucker guard Anthony Davis. Because what we've seen through some of the early games so far is we've seen the Rockets actually opt to have PJ Tucker guard the opposing 5 instead of Christian Wood because of PJ Tucker's defensive chops. So, if PJ gets stationed on Anthony Davis, then you've also still got a bit of a mismatch for Christian Wood against Marc Gasol because situationally he is, he outweighs Christian Wood by a solid 100 pounds maybe. So this is going to be an interesting matchup between these two and between the coaches in Steven Silas and Frank Vogel on how they do that little chess match and get people going. Now, hang on. I want to get Roosh in here because he's a big part of what we're trying to do here. And now he's messaging me, and you are not in here, my guy. You are not in here. Hang on. I apologize. Technical difficulties. All right. He'll rejoin in just a second. Get him popped up on the screen here in just a moment. So that's going to be a big, the kind of interior game there because we just saw Christian Wood last game make a noticeable improvement and actually get to there's Roosh. Now we got him in here. Hey, man. How's it going?
I was watching the whole thing. I don't know what was going on, but
hey, well, you know what? This is your punishment. You get to be the tiny little baby screen for being late. No, okay, I'm kidding. Here, we'll get you evened out. There we go. What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm excited to see this game.
All right. Well, we've kind of delayed this. We should have gotten this a little bit earlier, but what better time than now that we've got you joining us to go ahead and dive into the keys for this game. So we'll go ahead and jump straight into that. Yeah, everybody's freaking out. Roosh is here now. He finally made it. So let's go ahead and dive straight in here. We've got our keys to the game. So first up.
Yeah, transition defense, the metrics I think show that the Rockets have a pretty good, if not one of the best half-court defenses so far. But I'm not trusting any of those metrics because they're all over the place, right? Like the Rockets have not had their full squad except for one game. And that one game was against the Magic without, half of its team. So, but what we can tell is from the eye test, the transition defense has been awful. Sometimes they really just have, I feel like they've lost a couple games in transition. So if they can get back, the Lakers, have athletes to push it. I think Dennis Schroeder is going to try to push it. I feel like their second unit will try to push it with like Schroeder and Harrell. So I'm going to be looking for the Rockets to hopefully have fixed some of their weaknesses when it comes to transition defense. Second is rebounding, man. The Rockets, they look small, and obviously against the Lakers last season, they were out rebounded heavily, and the Lakers are just bigger. So I'm interested to see specifically Christian Wood, how he battles on the boards with Anthony Davis. But if they can rebound and if they can shore things up in transition defense, then they obviously give themselves a much better chance to win the game, especially against the Lakers team that punishes you when you make those types of mistakes. And last, man, contain Dennis Schroeder. I think Rockets fans still have PTSD from the series against the Thunder. I think individually, John Wall has the tools and the size and the ability to lock Dennis Schroeder up, relatively speaking. But it's the NBA. They're going to set a bunch of screens. They're going to try to get the right switches. So there's going to be times where Christian Wood will be on Dennis Schroeder. Different people will be on him. Obviously, the Lakers have LeBron James, and they have the Lakers have LeBron James, and they have Anthony Davis. But if you let other people beat you, like Dennis Schroeder, then you give yourself, a difficult chance to win the game. And I'm being told my mic is sounding off, so let me try to fix that. Take over, Jackson.
All right, I'm back. Yeah. No. So basically, and this is going to be an interesting thing as far as, we're talking about the rebounding battle, and some people even asking in the chat, is Christian Wood the best rebounder in a Rockets jersey since Yao Ming? I think that you'd probably have to still give Clint Capella some credit as a recent version of somebody of a big for the Rockets who did have, a pretty good proficiency for being able to secure boards and kind of anchor the defense a little bit. But even going back a little bit before that, right? You've still got Dwight Howard. Look, I know that people look upon the Dwight Howard years as almost like a blemish because they just weren't able to really achieve anything. They made it to the Western Conference Finals, yeah, but Dwight was out half the season, and he had a good postseason that year, though. I think he gets a lot of flack because he and Harden weren't able to achieve as much as they probably should have together. They just never meshed. But there's plenty of good rebounders in the immediate recent history of the Rockets franchise, but having a legitimate big in Christian Wood who can do those things again is pretty dope. But then, I think Roosh hit the nail on the head with containing Dennis Schroeder. I think a lot of us probably still have PTSD from, look, he wasn't in a Lakers jersey in the playoffs and wasn't a part of getting bounced 4-1, but he was a big part of that game going to 7 of that previous series in the first round, going to 7 games against Oklahoma City. So, containing Dennis Schroeder, having a point of attack defender like John Wall to be able to try and slow him down is going to be huge, right, Roosh?
Yeah, and please let me know if I sound any better. I think I fixed the mic, but if not, then I apologize. But also, man, as far as their best rebounder goes, DeMarcus Cousins, man, he has some deficiencies. He's had difficulties scoring the ball and shooting the ball. His shots looks pretty ugly for the most part, and he's just looked pretty out of rhythm on offense. I think he deserves some foul calls that he has not received. But regardless, you can tell when he's in the game, rebounds get secured. The Rockets have a paint presence. Even if it's not like a classic lockdown paint presence, he's just a big guy. And when he stands there, he's heavy. When he puts his hands straight up, like when he's not reaching, sometimes he reaches. But I think you saw in the last game against Vucevic, there were times where he was just manning Vucevic up. He fouled him because he reached. But when he's not reaching, like, he's very strong and he is a presence. So I think DeMarcus Cousins brings a lot in that regard. He had 14 rebounds, I think, against, I want to say the Pacers, and he didn't even play the fourth quarter. He's been blocking a lot of shots for the Rockets, surprisingly. So definitely look out for that. Does the microphone sound better, Jackson?
It's still chopping up. Unfortunately, I don't know if you're coming through your laptop or what, but you're definitely not coming through that awesome looking microphone that's hanging in your photo. Unfortunately, because I know what you usually sound like, but it's cool. We're getting your thoughts, and that's the important part. I really do think another key that we haven't spoken about yet this game is going to be what version of James Harden do we get? Because we've had a version of James Harden that for the last few games, he's looked not like himself. There's been some questions about whether or not he's given up, if he's quit on the franchise. I think those are a little bit overblown, including the commentary by Calvin Murphy. I think somebody on Twitter, Kim Bryan, said it really well, saying that, look, Harden is a guy who's given us so much excellency for years now that when he has games where he's a little bit where he performs a little under the weather or something, or he's just not a top 5 superstar level talent on the floor, we worry about him. We try to figure out, okay, well, what's going on? What's up with him? We start, and everything right now, because of the cloud of the trade request, all that, everything with James Harden is being put under a microscope. So he has a couple bad games because of an ankle roll where he's not even completely checked out. He's still facilitating the ball at a high rate. He's still getting other guys involved. He's still making plays defensively. And I think that, in this game, though, for them to have a chance to win, if the Lakers are firing on all cylinders, then the Rockets are going to need the James Harden of old to step up. And I hate saying that he's going to have one of those, vintage James Harden 30-plus games, but they're probably going to need that from him to have a chance in this one.
I don't
We got you back now. There we go.
There we go. I figured it out. Sorry. I don't think they're going to need one of those types of games from him. I think it's tough, right? Because you want to say, oh, he quit. Obviously, Calvin Murphy got caught on a hot mic saying he quit. But if you've watched him over the years, when he gets like those ankle injuries, yes, he plays he plays through them and fights back, but he plays like this, right? Like his shot, when that happens, his step back is off. Probably because he's like subconsciously or even consciously shifting weight to one side to favor like an injured ankle or something like that. And it just throws the balance of his shot off. He played kind of the same in the game against Orlando as he did against Indiana. It just so happens that his teammates were making shots against Orlando, so it looked a lot better. But he did not play well against Indiana, so don't get it twisted. But yeah, I mean, I think the Rockets are going to need a team effort, man. Like you're going to need games against the Lakers go in waves, right? So you can come out hot, but then they'll chip it back. So they're going to need an all-around effort. Jayshawn Tate, I think this is a big game for Jayshawn Tate. He's been a good contributor off the bench, but now he's going to play against LeBron James and one of the contenders in the league. We're going to see Nwaba probably guard LeBron James. So that'll be interesting. We'll see defensively. Like I remember when the Rockets played the Lakers last time, we all kind of theorized, oh, Robert Covington is going to man LeBron up. And I think he could do a decent job. Or PJ Tucker is going to man LeBron up. Well, now we got Nwaba, who's a totally different look and strong, just as strong as PJ, if not stronger, longer, more athletic. So that should be interesting. And like I said, man, like what is Cousins going to give you off the bench? Are the threes going to fall? I think we all collectively underrated how important Ben McLemore was to this team. And
I didn't. I've been championing Ben McLemore all offseason. You know what we should do is we should have a reshuffling. You should take over as formal president of the Jayshawn Tate fan club, because I think I have subconsciously been the president of the Ben McLemore fan club, because all offseason I've been saying this guy deserves like a significant spot in the rotation moving forward. He was too big of a piece. The fact that he didn't get the run against the Lakers once, Russ was back in the playoffs, it was just painful to see. He unlocks so much with his elite shooting in this lineup. And we saw that on display against the Magic is if they leave him, he's going to get wide open threes. He's going to burn them. If they stick with him, then it opens things up for driving lanes for Harden, for Wall, for the bigs, for Boogie and Christian Wood, who can actually create a little bit off the dribble, which is such a nice thing to see out of your 5 spot on the floor. Now, you talked about the threes, though. It's going to be really interesting to see if the Lakers actually limit the Rockets, because back in the playoffs, right, they were shooting over 53s a game in the bubble. And then they go into the playoffs and they shoot roughly the same amount of threes against the Thunder. But then the Lakers just completely took that weapon away. The Lakers had them averaging somewhere around 33s a game for the back half of that series when they went 4-0. So do they keep the Rockets off the 3-point line tonight? And if so, does Silas's system allow them to take those mid-range shots? Kind of something you and I have talked about a little bit in rhythm, being able to step in from the 3-point line and take some of those long twos rather than being forced to drive everything into the teeth of an Anthony Davis defense.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's a lot to unpack with what you said, so I'll do my best to touch on everything I can remember. First of all, I think, like I said, I had underrated McLemore. I mean, I know how important he is. I know he's our best shooter. It's so pretty watching him shoot, but there's just a shift in mentality and confidence that happens when you see the ball movement and things look pretty, and then it's finished off with, a 3-point shot that is made. And until he was playing, I think we've been seeing the Rockets make nice plays. You see some of the potential in the offense, but a possession will end with a missed shot or a Nwaba missed 3 from the corner, and it just doesn't hit the same, right? So seeing that, first of all, is awesome. Second, in the playoffs, man, the Lakers tried to they doubled and they were willing to gamble with the 4-on-3, and they made the Rockets shoot a lot less threes. I don't think they're going to take that route unless they need to. I don't expect doubles to happen in the first half, so we'll see. But the Rockets aren't as good of a 3-point shooting team as they were, and they're not as exclusively reliant on the 3. So I think the Lakers I don't think they're going to feel the need to double, and I think they're going to double if, like I said, they need to. So we'll see. If Houston is winning the game and the Lakers want to mix it up, I think coming into the third quarter, you'll see the double, and I'll be very interested to see how we handle that. But yeah, I mean, we see this roster and there's 10 or 11, maybe 12 playable guys. And I think McLemore was just kind of lost in the mix to a lot of Rockets fans because we've come to expect when a guy like McLemore is out, the Rockets are still good enough to win most of their games. You know, that's what we've gotten used to over the last 4 years. But maybe this team's different. You know, maybe they need that shooting. They don't have anyone who's capable of shooting above like 37% from three, except for McLemore, unless I'm missing someone off the top of my head. Harden's usually 35, 36. Eric Gordon is like in the tank from three. PJ's maybe around 37, almost exclusively from the corner, occasionally from the elbow. So having a guy
PJ's shooting 60% for the season, actually. So
but we're talking realistically. We know over the course of the season it'll flatten out to like 37, maybe if he's hot, maybe 38%. But again, that's going to be from the corner. So having a guy like McLemore that can catch and shoot from anywhere with the quick trigger, like it just totally opens an offense up. Now he did hurt his ankle, so watch out for that. I don't know if he's going to be right. And that's one of those things that you get scared of when people miss a lot of practice and miss a lot of game time because of COVID. They're not training. So you come back and easily get hurt. So hopefully he's not hurt because I think Houston will need him.
Let's get some of these questions in here because we got a lot of them lining up in the chat. So what lineup do y'all think, will Silas will trust to finish out the game if it's close against the Lakers? That's a tough one. I genuinely think you could, if Gasol's out there, you could see Boogie out there in the closing lineup, possibly.
I see people saying Sterling Brown is a great shooter. He's been one so far. I just want to acknowledge that. He's been one so far. He's probably going to start cooling off. He's pretty good. Catch and shoot. I think he's been shooting a little above his grade, but we'll see. Silas has shown a tendency to go small late. So if they're playing Gasol, maybe he trusts PJ. He hasn't shown trust in Cousins late in games so far. He didn't play him in the fourth against the Pacers. And that was like the one chance where, he would have been used. But that was a game the Rockets needed to win. And you didn't even see Boogie get a chance. So I'm hesitant on that. It would make sense in terms of the matchup if Gasol's playing. But I'm hesitant on that. I would say, obviously, Harden, Wall, Wood, assuming they're all available. PJ, he's shown a lot of trust in PJ. And then that last spot is, I think, what will be matchup contingent. So maybe
like it's like the flex spot where he's been kind of, picking and choosing the guys to slot in there, whether it's, like you said, McLemore, Gordon, Nwaba, somebody's going to take up that last spot. But those first four are pretty much a lock for that lineup.
Yeah. And I was going to say, man, what might happen, obviously it's contingent upon whether or not the Rockets continue to win. But if they look good, if they keep looking good, Daniel House's spot might be in jeopardy because you would usually think maybe before the season, House would take that spot as like the solid or the classic 3-and-D wing guy, right? But he's kind of had like a topsy-turvy little up and down start to the season. So if Houston continues to win and they're able to fill that fifth spot without Daniel House, then I think that House's spot begins to go in jeopardy, and we start talking about upgrading at the wing.
And I mean, it's unfair to House because, if he has been having the back issues, right, it's, he hasn't had a healthy start to the season, but these other guys have shown a lot of drive, a lot of promise in this potential role, potentially taking over that starting spot from him. But I've been saying that, out of those 4 3-and-D wing guys who could all take that starting 3 spot, because I think PJ Tucker's he's keeping his spot for now as the starting 4 next to Christian Wood. You've got House, Nwaba, Tate, and Sterling Brown, who could all, reasonably take over that starting 3 spot. And so far, David Nwaba has been getting the nod with Daniel House out. But House is the most well-rounded of all of those guys, I think. As far as you've got shooting, you've got the ability off the bounce, you've got the defense, you've got the athleticism. He is the most well-rounded of all of those guys. And actually, I think Sterling Brown is the second most well-rounded out of all of them. What's your thought on that, Roosh?
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong. I mean, I think the thing with House is that he's like a D'Antoni holdover, right? So his mentality, I don't think he's been able to get out of like being ready to catch and shoot if he's open. He hasn't shown the creation that we've wanted from him. Whereas the guys like Nwaba's willing to attack the basket. Sometimes he misses the layup, but sometimes he does really incredible things. Sterling Brown has been aggressive. Jayshawn Tate has been like a totally new flash of this creative offensive player we really haven't seen. And I think House is kind of feeling like the odd man out because he's stuck in D'Antoni mode. He's stuck in like catch and shoot the 3. He's stuck in, I don't have anywhere to go. Let me hit a step back. Like he's not attacking and creating in that regard. I think Sterling Brown, if this was like a video game, Sterling Brown might be the most well-rounded. I think Nwaba, it just depends on what you want. I like guys like Sterling Brown and Nwaba off the bench because of the energy they bring. Like when they're on the court together, they can just have this overwhelming energy that, flows into the defense, creates turnovers. They get in transition, that whole thing. So taking one of those guys and putting them in the starting lineup is a little difficult. But I guess so far Nwaba, although the offense looks a little funky with Nwaba in there, I just love his individual defense and like his energy.
He's been smart about driving, which is like, or not even just driving, but about cutting, even though he's a non-shooter, even though he's, hasn't shown a lot of promise from behind the arc, his ability to take the ball, go off the dribble with it, or even cutting as opposed to just standing on the 3-point line shows promise because he's a great finisher inside, almost shades of like Corey Brewer in the way that he plays, just because, he's had some up and down games where it's just, he does one thing good, then one thing bad, then one thing good, one thing bad. And it's very Corey Brewer-esque a little bit.
It's just weird. It is very Corey Brewer-esque in the regard that I'll see him do something and think, I didn't think he was about to do that. Like he had this move recently. It looked like he was going to, he took one step baseline and I thought he was just going to kind of like reverse it or maybe squeeze it up off the backboard. And he took a step baseline and just dunks 2 hands. It's like his level of athleticism is pretty surprising and his length I don't think we can perceive his length accurately on the TV because like when I'm looking at him, he just looks, like another NBA player. But then when you see some of the moves able to finish, it's exclusively because of his athleticism and length. And like, I don't know, it's just surprising. And defensively, man, there are times where he's amazing. Luke Nwabamute.
Luke Nwabamute, indeed. I love that you have coined that nickname. All right, we've got our tip off right around the corner. So we got to get our predictions in here for this game, Roosh. Where are you sitting at for this one?
Well, first of all, also shout out to Apollo for the shirt, man. Thank you for this. I love it.
And this one,
beautiful. There you go.
Yeah. And shout to continue that shout out from Apollo though, got to check them out if you haven't yet. ApolloHOU.com. They've got some really dope Rockets merch that they just unloaded. It is phenomenal. I'm a big fan of the Dragon Wall Z shirt that they've got. I've got one on the way, so definitely want to go check that out if you haven't yet. So again, ApolloHOU.com. Now, Roosh, give me that prediction.
Yeah, man. I mean, look, okay, Rockets have only played one game with their actual roster, and that was against Orlando without half of its roster. So they're still figuring it out. They haven't had time to practice. The Lakers have been rolling. They haven't been dominating teams, but they've been winning games, and they still have LeBron James and AD. I think the Rockets go cold from 3. I think the Lakers jump out early. Houston tries to make a comeback and fails, and Lakers 117, Rockets 103.
117-103. Wow, you're not even giving them any life. Okay, wow.
Just keeping it real.
We appreciate you for that. I'm going to lean the opposite. I'm going to lean they're taking the momentum from the Magic game. They needed that tune-up game in the worst of ways, and James Harden has a true bounce back game, scores at least 30 points in this one, and I'm going to go final score 115-109 Rockets in this one.
I'm gonna say Harden gets that bounce back game, and his teammates don't really pour it in the way he'd hoped for, and he gets shades of the second round of the playoffs. But we'll see.
Oh man, all right, that's painful. What a painful way to end our pregame show, but that's going to do it. So be sure to check out Locked On Rockets. We'll have you covered for a post-game recap as always. Be sure to check out the Noble and Roosh show on ballislife.com. Do not want to miss that. They've got exclusive interviews with tons of different people. Who have you had on recently, Roosh?
Taylor Rooks, Andrew Bogut coming up, Troy Daniels, might have Christian Wood. Stay tuned.
Ooh, okay. That's the eyes emoji right there. All right, but that's going to do it for our pregame show. So that's going to wrap it up. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate it. And above all else, go Rockets.